You come to me asking how to respond when your truth gets twisted by people who deny reality, who gaslight you, who tear down your dignity through subtle or direct disrespect. Being an empath means living with your psychological skin completely exposed. You feel the slightest shift in someone's hidden intentions. You sense the undercurrents flowing beneath their words. But this gift, when you're not conscious of it, becomes a curse. You get tangled in a web you didn't create, caught by forces of manipulation and unacknowledged shadows that others project ruthlessly onto you because you feel most deeply. Stay with me till the end of this video as I unravel the ultimate response. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notification. When you ask me for the ultimate response, I won't give you a weapon of revenge or some formula for outward victory. I'll give you a truth that rises from the depths of the unconscious. A truth that must be lived if it's going to transform you. Disrespect is never just about manners. It's a symbol, a signal that you've been pulled into a particular drama. Gaslighting isn't merely lying. It's a ritual of psychological possession, an attempt to make you doubt your own eyes, your memories, your soul's compass. The person who disrespects you is unconsciously trying to lower you because they fear the authority of truth that comes from your being. The one who gaslights you is already possessed by a darker force, the trickster gone demonic, who fears annihilation if reality is seen clearly. You must understand that your struggle is never with just a person, but with the archetypal forces moving through them. In recognizing this lies the first step toward your ultimate response. Why you? The question you must ask, the empath must ask, why am I the chosen one for this theater of distortion? Why does someone else's shadow find fertile soil in me? It's because within you lives not only sensitivity but a fragment of your own shadow, the part that hasn't yet claimed its authority, that hasn't spoken with the voice of the true self. Gaslighting only takes root where self-doubt already exists. Disrespect wounds most deeply when feelings of unworthiness already linger in your unconscious mind. So the first act of response isn't outward, but inward. You must confront your own part in this theater. Meet those ancient voices whispering, "You are small, you are fragile, you are undeserving." Because if you don't meet these whispers yourself, the world will meet them for you in the form of manipulators and abusers. But hear me clearly, this isn't about blaming you. It's revealing the alchemical truth of becoming whole. Life brings you opposites, respect and disrespect, truth and gaslighting, so you can discover within yourself the still point that neither can shatter. The unconscious empath becomes addicted to validation from others, and therefore vulnerable when that validation is withdrawn or twisted into contempt. But when you recognize that the very sensitivity that once wounded you is also your path to wisdom, something transforms. You begin to see disrespect as a mirror, gaslighting as a test, each insult as an invitation to remember your own authority, the dream that reveals everything. Imagine a dream. You're standing in a darkened hall, and a figure cloaked in shadow points at you and declares you're mad, that your eyes deceive, that your truth is false. At first you tremble, believing the voice, shrinking into a corner of yourself. But then you look into the figure's eyes and see their mirrors, reflecting your own doubt. You realize the figure has no power except what you give it. At that moment, you stop fighting. You stop pleading. You simply withdraw your energy and stand in your own being. The shadow dissipates because it can't survive without your belief. This dream isn't fantasy. It's the reality of gaslighting. The ultimate response isn't debate, not endless proof, not the desperate demand to be seen, but the silent and immovable presence of one who knows. I see what I see. I know what I know. My truth doesn't depend on your recognition. But silence alone isn't enough, because silence can also be submission. You must cultivate a silence that's radiant, a stillness that carries authority, a withdrawal not into fear but into essence. When you stop feeding the gaslighter with your energy, you're not retreating. You're cutting the lifeline of their possession. You no longer grant them the theater. The archetype can't play without an audience. Withdrawal and presence. The paradox. The ultimate response is both withdrawal and presence. Withdrawal from the game, presence in the self. You neither accept their distortion nor waste your soul proving them wrong. You simply embody the truth they fear. This embodiment is often unbearable for them because it unveils their own emptiness. They may rage, they may escalate, they may seek new ways to entangle you, But you, having seen the archetype, no longer confuse their shadow for your substance. The path of individuation is always lonely. You must walk away from illusions others cling to. The awakened empath stops being available for every projection, stops serving as the vessel for another's unresolved shadow. And here's the paradox. When you finally embody this ultimate response, you may be accused of arrogance, coldness, or cruelty. But understand these accusations arise because you're no longer complying with the unconscious contract of submission. In truth, your stance isn't arrogance but dignity, not coldness but clarity, not cruelty but self-love. You can't rescue those possessed by the archetype of the gaslighter. To do so would mean descending into their prison. You can only stand in the light, and in standing there, you offer them the chance to awaken, should they choose. Disrespect wounds because the ego still seeks recognition. The moment you taste the deeper well of the self, disrespect becomes a passing shadow. Gaslighting becomes absurd theater. You're not the opinion of another, nor the twisted reflection in a manipulator's mirror. You are the union of conscious and unconscious, the living symbol of wholeness, the childhood wound. You must understand that your vulnerability to disrespect and gaslighting isn't an accident. It's deeply connected to patterns forming since childhood, when the energies of parents, authority figures, caretakers left impressions on your tender soul. Many empaths grew up in homes where truth was unstable, where love was conditional, where affection mixed with denial, where anger was disowned and projected. In such environments, you learn not to trust your own perception, but to scan the emotional weather of adults, to attune to every shift in tone, to anticipate hidden storms. The empath isn't merely born but shaped, sculpted by necessity into one who feels too much to survive. You silenced your inner compass and gave priority to external cues, and thus the perfect soil was prepared for future encounters with gaslighters. Gaslighting is a reenactment of that primal confusion. It's the voice of the parent who says, "You're not cold when you shiver." The mother who smiles, saying nothing's wrong while rage simmers beneath. The father who denies the blow, the insult, the absence. The child, desperate for belonging, learns to doubt the evidence of their senses. This wound is never forgotten. When you as an adult encounter disrespect and gaslighting in relationships, at work, in love, it's not only the present injury burning, it's the ancient wound reopened, the repair you must make. The ultimate response requires not just strength in the present, but courage to revisit the past. You can't stand immovably in your truth if part of you still kneels before childhood ghosts, begging for their approval. You must return to that inner child, enter the dreamscape of your own memories, and say what no one said to you. You were right. What you saw was real. What you felt was valid. You weren't crazy. You weren't too much. You were the only one awake in a room of the asleep. This repair isn't sentimental but archetypal. It restores the axis of perception. It reestablishes your covenant with reality itself. Without this healing, every gaslighter will awaken the child who doubts. With this healing, you become untouchable because you've reconciled with your own perception. The price of truth. This path isn't easy. To declare you see what you see may mean losing the love of those who demand your blindness. To insist on your truth may shatter illusions others cling to. The awakened empath often walks away not just from abusive partners but from families, communities, entire systems of denial. This exile is painful because you long above all for unity, connection, belonging. But here's another paradox. The very belonging you long for will never come from those who gaslight, because they require your self-betrayal as the price of admission. True belonging only emerges when you belong to yourself, when you no longer exile your own perception. Only then can you encounter others who meet you not with disrespect but with resonance. To endure loneliness in the interim is to pass through the valley of individuation. It's the dark night of the soul where you, stripped of false attachments, begin to feel the presence of the self as never before. Anger, the fire that must be transmuted. There's also the question of anger, because disrespect ignites fear and gaslighting provokes rage. Many empaths repress this fire, fearing it will destroy connection. You've been taught anger is dangerous, that to express it means losing love. But repression is itself a form of self-gaslighting, a denial of your legitimate response to violation. The ultimate response doesn't mean suppression. It means alchemy. Anger must be transmuted into clarity, rage into boundaries, fire into the flame that illuminates truth. If you deny anger, you become complicit in your own diminishment. If you express it unconsciously, you become entangled in the manipulator's theater. But if you allow it to inform you, to show you where your dignity has been crossed, then anger becomes a sword forged by the self. You learn to wield this sword not to wound, but to sever the invisible cords of distortion. Your own shadow, the empath, so focused on others' cruelty, often forgets their own shadow, the hidden part that enjoys martyrdom, that clings to the role of victim, that unconsciously feeds on the drama of being disrespected. To admit this is painful because it feels like betraying your innocence. But to deny it keeps you ensnared. Your shadow may enjoy the righteousness of being mistreated, the secret superiority of being the one who feels more. This too must be confronted, because the ultimate response isn't only external disengagement, but internal honesty. When you meet your shadow, when you admit your secret collusion, you rob the gaslighter of their final weapon. They can no longer hook you with your unacknowledged hunger. You become free not because the world changed, but because you've integrated what was unconscious, the sovereign stance. And so, my friend, when you ask for the ultimate response, I tell you this: it's the unwavering embodiment of your truth, without demand, without pleading, without performance. It's recognizing that no one can distort reality itself, only your perception of it. And when you anchor perception in the self, distortion dissolves. You may ask, isn't this too mystical when the wound burns like fire? But know this: even in the heat of the wound, you can recall that the wound itself is an initiation. Every time you feel the sting of contempt, it's a shadow inviting you to claim your authority. Every attempt at gaslighting is the unconscious offering you a mirror. Do you believe your eyes, or hand them over to another? Will you stand in your perception, or abandon it to the trickster? This choice, repeated again and again, sculpts the soul of the empath into the sovereign witness. The gaslighter thinks they destroy you, but in truth, they forge you. They become the blacksmith of your authority, though they don't know it. The 3 layers of response. The ultimate response has 3 layers. Inwardly, it's self-recognition. Outwardly, it's sovereign presence. Relationally, it's compassionate disengagement. Inwardly, you anchor in the self, refusing to betray your perception. Outwardly, you embody dignity, neither pleading nor posturing. Relationally, you walk away from illusions without hatred, offering the possibility of truth to others by your example, but never sacrificing yourself to their blindness. These 3 together form the trinity of response: knowing, being, and living. The empath who embodies such a response doesn't stop feeling. On the contrary, you feel more deeply than ever, but feeling no longer overwhelms you. It flows like a river through a sturdy channel. You sense the lies of others but don't drown in them. You notice the subtle contempt, but it doesn't erode your foundation. Your sensitivity becomes a gift not only for yourself but for the world. Because in a culture intoxicated with denial, the empath who sees clearly becomes a prophet. Not the kind who shouts in the marketplace, but the kind who lives so authentically that their very existence becomes revelation, the final vision. So I leave you with this vision. You, no longer begging for recognition, no longer silenced by distortion, no longer enslaved by others' shadows. You, standing as one who sees clearly, feels deeply, and acts with dignity. You, embodying the archetype of the sovereign empath who walks through the world, not untouched by pain, but undefeated by it. This is the ultimate response. Not a word spoken in defiance, but a life lived in truth. Not a shield raised in fear, but a soul radiating with authority. Not collapse into bitterness, but ascent into wisdom. And should you falter, as all do, return to the symbols. Remember the courtroom dream and walk out of it. Remember the labyrinth dream and ignore the trickster's voice. Remember the mountain and the torch, and know they are within you. Trust the self, for in the self lies the authority no manipulator can touch, the dignity no disrespect can erode, the clarity no distortion can obscure. Trust it, embody it, and you will find the ultimate response was never a strategy, but a state of being. You will walk through this world free, not because the world changed, but because you have. And in your freedom, you will illuminate the path for others still lost in the theater of shadows. For that is the secret destiny of the empath: to transform pain into prophecy, to turn wounds into wisdom, to reveal by your very existence that truth cannot be gaslight, that dignity cannot be disrespected, that the soul, once awakened, cannot be enslaved. Thank you for staying till the end. Welcome to ThinkDeep Studios. Subscribe for more videos.